World Journalists Conference 2024 will soon begin. All the participants are kindly requested to come into the conference hall and be seated. Before we begin the conference, a friendly reminder to please turn off your phone or put them in silent mode. English is the official language of the conference. For interpretation, please use the receiver device in front of you. The channel number 1 is for English, and channel number 2 is for Korean. 안녕하세요. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joo Hee. I'm the managing editor of the Korea Herald, and I am a moderator of Conference 1. It is a great pleasure to chair today's conference about the role of media in world journalism and world peace with outstanding journalists from all over the world. The Journalists Association of Korea has been hosting the World Journalist Conference every year since 2013, inviting journalists from various countries to Korea to discuss global issues as well as diverse topics on the roles of media. This year, marking the 12th conference, the theme of the first session is said to be the role of the media in world journalism and world peace. The Russia-Ukraine war has persisted for over 2 years while the Israel-Hamas war continues, not to mention various other regions around the world suffering from conflicts. With that being said, the Journalists Association of Korea has prepared a session to look into the role of the media with the universal aim of restoring peace to the world. Let me start by introducing our outstanding speakers from different parts of the world. First, from my right is Ms. CHEN Yingqun, senior reporter of the International News Desk of China Daily. Please give her a big round of applause. Next is Ms. NOH Ji Won from Hankyoreh Media of South Korea. Next is Anum HANIF, a producer of Hum News Network from Pakistan. And Nicola SMITH, Asia Correspondent of the Telegraph from the UK. So each of our speakers will deliver their speeches for 10 minutes, starting from the order of my introduction. And after their speeches, you will also get a chance to converse with them, ask them questions, or share your own opinions. So let's start with Ms. CHEN Yingqun. If you could take to the podium.
Good morning, friends and colleagues in the media. First, I would like to extend my gratitude for the warm invitation from the Journalists Association of Korea. It is a great pleasure for me to come here to the beautiful city of Seoul for this conference. This is my second time participating in this event, but my first time to come here to have a face-to-face exchange with media friends from around the world, and I'm really looking forward to it. The theme of this conference is the role of journalism in war reporting and world peace. Although discussing war is a very bleak subject, it is crucial to think deeply about it, because wars and conflicts not only directly impact many people's lives, but also threaten the future of human civilization and our planet. The world is now witnessing a rise in instability and uncertainty. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has entered the third year, with peace still remaining elusive. The long-standing conflict between Palestine and Israel has yet to find the solution. And many people in the Gaza Strip are facing severe surviving challenges. In some other corners of the globe, geopolitical conflicts could erupt at any moment. These conflicts have severely affected people's lives, threatening the innocent and posing serious challenges for global peace and stability. In this context, the role of media becomes particularly important. China Daily has always kept a close watch on the turbulent changes in the global situation. In response to the two major conflicts, our domestic and international journalists, as well as editors, have conducted extensive reporting through articles, new media products, and other formats, calling for peaceful resolution of these conflicts. Regarding the role of media in war reporting and world peace, I would like to share a few thoughts. Firstly, I think the media should report on wars or conflicts in a timely, accurate, and comprehensive manner. When conflicts or wars break out, media reporting becomes an important channel for the global community to understanding what is really going on. Over the years, advancements and the development of social media platforms have made information dissemination across the world more convenient and quicker. But they have also been accompanied by a significant amount of false information and erroneous report. False and incorrect reporting on wars or conflict could lead to misunderstanding and confusion among the public, causing unnecessary panic and anxiety. In its coverage of wars and conflicts, China Daily draws on extensive network of domestic and international editorial resources, making good use of various news databases and resources from media partners, striving to reporting what is going on to the public in a timely, accurate, and comprehensive manner. We have interviewed officials, academics, professionals, and of course members of the public, providing in-depth and comprehensive analysis of the impacts caused by the conflicts. For instance, we have published a series of in-depth reports on new media products that have comprehensively analyzed the impact of Russia-Ukraine conflict, such as the triggering of geopolitical tensions and humanitarian crises, disrupting international and industrial and supply chains, and imperiling food security. Timely, accurate, and comprehensive reporting not only helps the world understand the truth behind wars and conflicts, but also help awaken global consciousness about it. This includes promoting understanding about the need for international assistance and underlying the need to find a path to peace. Second, I think it's essential for media outlets to maintain independence and objectivity while ensuring balanced reporting. The outbreak of wars and conflicts is often accompanied by complex disputes. Many geopolitical conflicts around the world are not caused by a single event, but have a long historical development process. In the coverage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the Israel-Palestine conflict, it seems to me that some international media channels have greatly amplified the voices of one side while turning a deaf ear to the voices of the other. That does a grave disservice not only to their audience, but also to truth. China Daily is committed to providing objective and balanced reporting with respect to the different positions of parties involved in the conflict, meticulously cite various sources of information in its coverage, and analyzing the historical context and complicated regions behind the conflicts. For us, it's important to reflect the suffering and injustice experienced by the victims, as well as to present the positions and viewpoints of different parties involved in the conflict. We also need to depict the cruelty and violence of war, but also understand the underlying causes and motivations behind the conflict. Balanced reporting can reflect the professionalism and credibility of the news media, help to reduce misinformation and bias, and improve audience awareness and understanding of war. It can also promote healthier and more rational public discourse providing important information for peace advocates and policymakers. Third, I believe that the media need to increase its focus on the notion of peace and the implementation of proactive strategies. As a country that has once suffered greatly from invasion, China and its people deeply understands the value of peace. In the more than 70 years since the founding of the People's Republic of China, it has never initiated a war. China has also incorporated the principle of peaceful development into its constitution. Regarding the Russia-Ukraine and the Israel-Palestine conflicts, China has maintained an objective and fair stance, insisting on promoting peace talks and hoping to contribute to world peace. Chinese media professionals also deeply love and cherish peace, and they have integrated the desire for world peace into their news reporting. Since those conflicts broke out, China Daily has committed itself to highlighting the cause for peace and working for peaceful solutions. We have highlighted the positive steps people of goodwill everywhere take to build trust, solve disputes, handle agreements, and avert crises. Our reports are designed to prompt our readers to deeply ponder the realities of war and foster a profound longing for peace, all the while presenting real ways to settle conflicts. We hope to encourage people worldwide, including policymakers, to seek out and follow roads to peace, join hands in creating a secure future for all humanity. Media platforms are key to spreading information, and they have a significant role in supporting global peace and progress. It is my heartfelt wish that everyone, no matter where they are, could enjoy peace. I also hope that the global media outlets would work together to improve public understanding of international issues through responsive and positive reporting, foster cross-border dialogue, and facilitate peaceful resolution of conflicts, thereby contributing to peace and development of the world. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. CHEN Yingqun. She has talked about how the media should report on wars and conflicts in a timely, accurate, and comprehensive manner, and to maintain independence and objectivity. Especially highlighted on the media to increase its focus on the notion of peace and the implementation of proactive strategy. Thank you for your speech, presentation. Next, we will hear from Ms. NOH Ji Won of Hankyoreh Media of South Korea.
Hello, my name is Joo Hee. I work for the Hankyoreh newspaper in the International News Department. First of all, it's an honor to be here and share my field experience related to today's topic. The specific topic I will cover today is the limits of Korean war journalism from the field. I divided the contents into three parts: the current reality of Korean media war coverage, the cause, and my personal opinion about how to improve war journalism practices. I would like to start by sharing my personal working experience. Shortly after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, I was dispatched by Hankyoreh to the Polish-Ukrainian border region to cover news about refugees. Other Korean news organizations similarly sent the staff to Poland to report on the war. However, unlike other international media outlets, none of the Korean media reporters were able to travel to Ukraine's major cities, such as Kyiv, where fighting was taking place in real time. because the South Korean government designated Ukraine as a no-travel zone as soon as the war broke out. Trespassing into a travel ban area without government authorization is punishable by law. Actually, there is a case of a freelance journalist who was fined by the court after traveling to and reporting from Kyiv in March. In response to the backlash from the media, in June of 2022, the South Korean government allowed journalists into very limited areas for just 2 weeks, such as Kyiv, where Russian forces has just retreated from a couple of months prior. However, access to most of the Ukrainian regions was not legally possible and still isn't. Journalists who should have been on the front lines were forced to rely on the foreign reports for their stories. The Korean government's regulations are so restricted that it makes it almost impossible for journalists to report about war continually. The government's rationale for this restriction is public safety, but it is up to each media organization to decide whether or not to cover a story. The biggest fallout of this restriction is that it will weaken the competitiveness of Korean media. Reporters who do not go to the field have less access to very important information and sources, such as local citizens and government or military officials. This in turn affects the depth of their reporting. I think the government is not just violating freedom of speech and restricting independent journalism, but also interfering with journalists and the media to build up the infrastructure for professional war reporting. Secondly, the issue of sustainability of Korean media's war coverage behavior also matters. Although there are slight differences among media organizations, I believe that they generally treat war as an event by only sending reporters to the field for one-off coverage. It is not surprising that Korean media's war coverage is more sporadic than continuous because we frequently have to face the wall of government restrictions. For example, the media flocked to the Polish border immediately after the war broke out, then to Kyiv in June, and again to the capital on the 1 year or 2 year anniversary of the war. It is very competitive at the height of the coverage, but their interest wanes very quickly. The coverage is reactive, sporadic, and calendarized rather than steady and continuous. Whilst most of the major international foreign news organizations still have correspondents on the ground in relevant conflict areas, Korean media outlets tend to rely on foreign sources to report on major war developments on a daily basis. On field trips to Kyiv, I met a lot of Ukrainians on the site. People's testimonies were so vivid and the stories I discovered there were genuine. Our team was able to actually report the horror of war with real voices of people. I also interviewed several Ukrainian government and military officials in very important positions. Their stories contained not only key information, but also authentic and relatable perspectives about their realities. I can confidently say that providing a vivid insight is absolutely crucial for quality reporting to audiences who are far away from the scene. Meeting people in person and to be as close to the reality as possible is the only way to gain actual insight, stories, and first-hand information to provide valid stories and to ensure quality news. This reality is directly and indirectly related to the last reality, which is that we Korean journalists are lacking war reporting guidelines and manuals. I would like to share my personal experience on that. When the government allowed reporters to cover the war in Kyiv in June 2022, I assembled a team to report from the field. I was faced with a daunting situation. For example, when the Ukrainian government asked us to prepare safety equipment, I realized my company did not have any of them, such as bulletproof hats or vests. I had to ask my company to purchase equipment, but I was not certain about the appropriate level of protection. I think this situation was not really different in other news organizations in Korea. In my opinion, a comprehensive manual on safety protocols and equipment standards are essential for ensuring both the safety of journalists and the integrity of their reporting. When I was in Kyiv, months after the initial retreat of Russian forces, the environment felt relatively safe. I was uncomfortable to be so protected with these safety gears while locals were in the process of trying to go back to their just normal life. I was very worried, thinking that I might be painting a stereotype picture of what a war zone looks like. So I decided not to wear the vest and hat. This is just one of those moments when I wished there were some guidelines and manuals that any journalist could refer to before going to a war or conflict zone. So far, I've shared the reality of Korean war journalism. Now I would like to move on to the second part, the root cause of this reality. I think the main fundamental cause of it comes from the Korean media's underestimation of the importance of international coverage and deprioritization of coverage of foreign issues such as conflict and war. The root causes related to geopolitics. As you all know, South Korea is geographically surrounded by Japan, China, and Russia, and allied with the United States despite geographical distance. For this reason, for a long time, politics and related coverage were limited to these four big countries. The media's tendency to overlook news from reasons not directly tied to national interests, like other countries within Asia, Africa, South America, Europe, is inevitably linked to the Korean media's limited scope. It reflects an attitude that stories from foreign conflict zones are irrelevant to us. But, as we have seen, conflicts like the war in Ukraine demonstrate that international events have global ramifications. Even though we all know the importance of multilateral diplomacy really matters, if the media does not play an active role, I do not think citizens' perceptions or government policies will change quickly enough. I just highlighted the realities and causes of the Korean media's limited war coverage. In order to address this, on-the-ground reporting must be seen as vital. News coverage in the field of a conflict zone is essential because the primary purpose of the media is to fulfill the public's right to access comprehensive and accurate information through quality journalism. In war zones, where access to information is often obstructed or controlled, unique challenges are posed. Classified information and restricted areas can be especially difficult for journalists to access and complicate the goal of presenting facts accurately. Moreover, war and conflict are extremely high-stakes affairs, and there can be conflicting claims from different parties. Furthermore, wars and conflicts are characterized by propaganda and incitement by political actors. In this so-called information war, journalists have an obligation to ensure that the public can access unbiased news. People can only have the chance to build their own opinions on such issues with high-quality journalism, first-hand sources, and reliable information. This is especially relevant because ultimately, public opinion can steer and shape foreign policy. For this reason, objectivity and well-researched journalism is more important than ever. Despite South Korea's current advancement and global influence, the media coverage in Korea is predominantly focused on domestic issues. It is time for the Korean media to challenge the aforementioned government's excessive restrictions on the war coverage. Also, we should create our own war reporting guidelines. Instead of sporadic assignments, there needs to be sustained commitment to covering international affairs. Thank you for taking your time to listen to my presentation, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for your presentation. Ji Won has given us a quite transparent view and experience as a war correspondent and the restrictions faced by the South Korean reporters in covering conflicts and the lack of safety or reporting guidelines. Furthermore, she has pointed out Korean media's rather reactive, sporadic, and even limited coverage of wider international affairs. Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have presenter Anum HANIF, Hum News Network producer from Pakistan. Please welcome her presentation with a warm round of applause.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Anum HANIF and I'm from Lahore, Pakistan, working as a producer in Hum News Network. I have previously worked in print media and electronic media for past more than 10 years. And here we are discussing very important topic, the role of media in war journalism and world peace. There are many kinds of conflicts in the world today, from small-scale disagreements to full-scale wars. Conflicts persist, leaving a path of devastation and suffering in their wake. Examples of these conflicts include the continuing civil war in Syria, the tensions in the Middle East, and territorial disputes in Asia. The last year has demonstrated the risk of military confrontations escalating into regional warfare, as evidenced by Israel-Hamas war and Russia's grueling battle with Ukraine. With its 70-year history, Pakistan has seen several security, political, and territorial conflicts that have become worse with time. These conflicts include, among others, the struggle between the Taliban and the state, unsettling situation in Balochistan, and the territorial dispute with India since 1947. Express Tribune, Pakistan's well-known publication, reports in an article titled "Illusion of History in the Eyes of the Media" that the way the media on both sides, Pakistan and India, reported on the 1960 war itself and the events that followed made it possible for establishments of both countries to interpret conclusions of the war according to their own choice. The article also compiled some headlines in the Indian newspapers. "Civilized attitude of our soldiers wins hearts of Lahoris," reads headline of an Indian newspaper. "Lahore captured, our forces are moving into Kasur," was another headline. "Indian forces never entered the city of Lahore." Excuse me. The Pakistani media also employed different tools. Unfortunately, conflicts and wars are all too typical in today's global world. There is a lot of violence and turbulence in the globe, from domestic conflicts to international conflicts. In these challenging times, the media emerges as a powerful force in shaping perceptions, disseminating information, and influencing public opinion. During this crisis, the media serves as a window to the realities of war and plays a crucial role in shaping how the public perceives and understands these conflicts. According to communication experts, where there is a conflict, people become more dependent on the media, which has a stronger impact on the audience. Excuse me. War journalism, with its thorough coverage of battles, has the ability to bring the grim reality of war into the homes of millions. From frontline reporting to in-depth analysis, journalists risk their lives to deliver first-hand stories of the chaos and destruction caused by the conflict. However, a sensationalist or aggressive approach to conflict can result in a distorted picture of events, emphasizing on violence and gory visuals rather than underlying reasons and human stories behind the headlines. In the word of war journalist Martha, war happens to people, one by one. The human cost of war is highlighted by this sad insight, which is often ignored in war reporting. Despite the challenges, journalists have a responsibility to maintain ethical standards and to balance and insightful reporting that upholds the dignity of those affected by war. In recent years, there has been a rising realization of the need of peace journalism, which aims to encourage discussion, understanding, and reconciliation during the times of conflict. Peace journalism focuses on conveying tales about resilience, grassroots peace efforts, and voices pushing for peaceful solutions. Renowned journalist Christian Amanpour once stated, "The role of the press is to question those in power, to hold them accountable, and to give voice to the voiceless." Amanpour's words highlighted the importance of media in challenging the status quo and calling for peace during conflict. Peace journalism can be a powerful tool for promoting dialogue and reconciliation among diverse communities in the region where tensions run high. Pakistan has seen a fair share of internal and external crises, ranging from sectarian bloodshed and terrorism to political instability. The media has seen extremely influencing consequences and forming impressions in the unstable atmosphere, while careless reporting has the power to deepen rifts and incite conflict. Responsible reporting may advance communication, increase understanding, and open the door to peace. Thankfully, Pakistani media does include peace journalism, but regrettably, it also adopts positions that are opposed to peace. During a conflict between India and Pakistan in February 2019, when Indian wing commander was captured by Pakistan after his jet was shot down in Pakistan's territory, the reporting on both sides in India and Pakistan was not in favor of peace journalism until Pakistan released him as a gesture of goodwill and peace. It was a responsibility of media on both sides to realize the risk of escalating tensions on both sides. As renowned journalist Walter Cronkite famously remarked, "Freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy." Indeed, the media's commitment to truth, accountability, and peace is paramount in the pursuit of a more just and peaceful world. The media must accept its role as a catalyst for peace and promote solutions that put mutual respect and human dignity first in the effort to bring about world peace during conflicts. As Stephen Youngblood, a writer, peace journalism instructor, and director of the Center for Global Peace Journalism, says, "It's not hard to be impressed by those actively working to build bridges across conflict-reinforced divides. I happened to meet Youngblood in Nepal in 2022 during a peace journalism conference. Yuan Galtung is the founder of Disciplines of Peace Studies. He founded the International Peace Research Studies, and Jay Kling's director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Sydney, and is co-author of many books on peace. In their book titled Reporting Conflict, New Directions in Peace Journalism, Galtung and Lynch established 4 main principles that can serve as main guidance for peace journalism. And these are: explore the formation of conflicts, who are the parties involved, what are their goals, what is the socio-political and cultural context of the conflict, what are the visible and invisible manifestations of violence, avoid the dehumanization of the parties involved and expose their interests. Another one is offer non-violent responses to conflict and alternatives to militarized violent solutions. The next is report non-violent initiatives that take place at the grassroots level and follow the solution, reconstruction, and reconciliation phases. In the context of social responsibility, we as journalists must take steps in making this world a peaceful place during conflicts, and there is a lot need to be done to bring peace. In other words of Yuan Galtung on Talk Nation Radio, war is a crime against humanity, but much more must be done to criminalize war. Many of us would argue that peace journalism is a preferable strategy while reporting on war. It is harder as well. While discussing the importance and need of peace journalism, we must not forget the challenges associated with it. Otherwise, it will remain a theoretical rather than a practical approach. I believe our next discussion should be specifically on challenges associated with embracing peace journalism. Based on discussions with experienced journalists, books on peace journalism, participation in different workshops on safety of journalists in conflict zones, and my years of experience in news media, I want to highlight the most important challenges that journalists, both in newsroom and on the ground, face when covering war stories. First is safety. Most importantly, protect yourself. You can get the best story, but if you go any further in conflict zone, you might die. You only have two options: protect yourself or acquire the story. Always choose to protect yourself. Journalists' lives are important. One journalist can tell stories of many. Access to the area. We see photographs and recordings from the combat zone, but it is difficult for non-local, even for local journalists, to gain access to such places. How can journalists gain access to conflict zone for coverage? Who will take them to those areas? The inability to gain access to conflict zone reduces the quality of stories by limiting journalists' capacity to provide in-depth and well-sourced information. The another one is gathering the information and verifying the facts. We do that all the time in our regular reporting, but it is difficult during reporting during conflict zones. In their book, The Elements of Journalism, Bill and Tom wrote the essence of journalism is a discipline of verification, but that's easier said than done. How can journalists, particularly those who rely on field reports in their newsrooms, ensure that they get all the facts regarding the conflict? They are fully reliant on local journalists, who on the ground, how on the ground reporters can get information, because there are security issues and they may not be able to roam as freely as they would on a normal day. How do journalists can verify those that gathered information, and how they can verify those facts? Another one is how to get the fixer. Fixer provides critical support to foreign correspondents in crisis zones, serving as a backbone of war and conflict reporting. But the real questions are how to find one. Is he or she reliable? How to make sure your fixer is unbiased and do not have any kind of affiliations that can have an impact on the reporting. And the most important is human angle. How do you obtain stories with a human angle? How do you communicate with individuals while acknowledging their trauma? By highlighting the human side of conflict and amplifying voices for peace, the media can play a crucial role in shifting the narratives from one of violence to one of hope. Media as mouthpiece or watchdog. The last but certainly not least difficulty facing journalism and journalists is avoiding acting as a spokesperson for the government or any other strong authority. Every government will have its own agenda or policy during times of conflict. What options do journalists have when pressure from the government and other interest groups forces them to report in a way that suits their needs. These are the challenges that needs to be addressed. It will be impossible to achieve the goal of constructive approach of peace journalism during the conflict reporting if these challenges remain unaddressed. Greater dedication to the practice of peace journalism and an understanding of its purpose are need of the time. I firmly believe that hope and peace can be brought to the societies through peace journalism. Thank you everyone, and thank you Journalists Association of Korea, President Park Jong-hyun.
Thank you, Ms. Anum HANIF, for your presentation. She has given us insight on how the media continues to emerge as a powerful force in shaping perceptions and in disseminating information and eventually influencing public opinion. She has especially highlighted on the need of peace journalism that can focus on conveying tales of resilience, grassroots peace efforts, and voices pushing for peaceful solutions. Also, she broke down the challenges faced when covering war stories. Thank you again for your presentation. Next, we have Ms. Nicola SMITH of the Telegraph from the UK. Please give her a round of applause for the presentation.
Hi everyone. It's daunting to follow such excellent presentations from my colleagues. So thank you in advance for listening. It's an honour to be here in such great company, and thanks also to the conference organisers for inviting me. My talk is going to be a bit more personal, based on what I know from my own experiences on the ground over the past 15 years of reporting from conflict zones and natural disasters. And I'm sure there are many more experienced people in this room than me, and some of my points will be up for debate, but I look forward to hearing your views and your questions and your challenges. I started reporting on conflict and its aftermath when I moved to Delhi in 2009 with the London Sunday Times, and I began to cover South Asia. That sent me initially to Sri Lanka as the civil war was coming to an end and terrible atrocities were being committed against civilians. It led me then to Pakistan, Afghanistan, where I covered the war from 2012 to 2015. And I also spent a few weeks in Iraq in 2014 reporting on the rise of Islamic State and its horrific attacks on the Yazidi population. In 2016, I moved to Taiwan and I began to cover Asia for the Telegraph. That was mainly East and Southeast Asia, which was taking me around the region to report on natural disasters, tensions on the Korean Peninsula, the Rohingya crisis, and the Hong Kong protests. And in 2022, I spent several weeks in Ukraine shortly after the Russian invasion, similar to Ji Won. The role of media in war journalism and world peace is really a huge topic. There is no doubt that the media can change mindsets and sometimes even shift the course of events, and it does make a difference. But in my opinion, we also need a reality check if we think that journalism can achieve world peace. There are limits to what we can do. Humanity is too flawed. There will always be conflict. The reality is that as journalists, we're often on the periphery of events, observing rather than driving them, but still playing a vital role in throwing a spotlight onto the horrors of war and documenting its madness, hoping that lessons can be learned, that justice can be served, and also showing the best of humanity in the most terrible of circumstances. We can often be idealistic, but we do have to mentally reconcile ourselves to the fact that we're unlikely to shift the dial of world history very far with our reporting, obviously without being defeatist or too pessimistic. So why go? Why go to conflict zones? Here I want to quote war reporter Marie Colvin, who was a colleague at the Sunday Times and someone I greatly admired. She was a very compassionate reporter and often a mentor to younger journalists. And she gave a very powerful speech in 2010, shortly before she was killed in Syria, where she said, "The need for frontline objective reporting has never been more compelling." And those are words that remain very true today as we see the world just explode into different conflicts. She said, "Covering a war means going to places torn by chaos, destruction, and death, and trying to bear witness." She continued, "We go to remote war zones to report what is happening. The public have a right to know what our government and our armed forces are doing in our name. Our mission is to speak the truth to power. We send home that first rough draft of history. We can and do make a difference in exposing the horrors of war, and especially the atrocities that befall civilians." Everyone has their own reasons, motivation for reporting in a conflict zone. My own view is that we're there to tell the truth in the most informed and accurate way we can, to ask difficult questions. It's not always easy in the confusion of an unfolding crisis to know what the truth is. But it is our job to hold the authorities, the major actors in any conflict, to account, and to tell the stories of people impacted by the tragedy of war who otherwise may not have a voice. We may not achieve world peace in doing so, but we shouldn't underestimate the hope that it can bring to a person simply to be heard and to know that their suffering isn't forgotten. It's our job to show the human face of any crisis, to make an individual situation relatable to a world that is suffering from compassion fatigue. Social media has changed the way that we report, giving us access to so much more information, images, and perspectives, and there's a lot of advantages to that. But it also presents us with major challenges, shaking the very foundations of our profession. In the age of disinformation, fake news, and artificial intelligence, it's more important than ever to be on the ground, to challenge untruths and false narratives with accurate, factual reporting. For example, this has been an important aspect of the information war over Ukraine, where photos, videos, eyewitness accounts have been vital in rebutting Russia's claims of firing missiles at military installations rather than at civilian targets. Reporting the truth, however, has become more difficult to a more skeptical audience. On several occasions, I've had people tell me that what I saw with my own eyes did not happen. Most recently in Mongolia, covering a climate change-related winter freeze that has killed millions of cattle, our story was slammed online by climate change deniers, claiming that our photos of dying cattle on the Mongolian steppe were fake, animals that we had seen with our own eyes. But the truth is the truth, and nothing can substitute an eyewitness account. We have to stay the course, ignore the trolls, keep challenging the sinister manipulation of the facts with robust and professional reports. We also have to check our own biases and retain the humility to accept that our knowledge is often lacking and limited, that the truth is often nuanced and hard to find, that we might not know the full picture. I'd like to speak a little about preparation. How do you prepare for war? Obviously, there are basics like having the right protective gear, which is an absolute must. But can you ever truly mentally prepare for the insanity of conflict, with being confronted with intense human suffering, the deaths of children, the raw emotions of war? There's no handbook for much of what we face in the field. You can never be fully ready for the unpredictability of a hostile environment. How do you always know what road is safe to travel on, what way to run when gunfire starts, whose opinion to trust? There have been many times, like the moment a bomb exploded outside my hotel in Baghdad, where I've not known immediately what to do, shelter in place in the room, or seek an escape route from potential shooters. These decisions are made in the moment, and you hope that you make the right choice. Or when presented with the chance to go on a patrol with the Afghan army near the Pakistan border, I spent the evening before talking to my editor about whether the story was worth the risk. How do you make that call? More often than I would like to admit at this stage of my career, I still don't have a firm answer about risk thresholds, about when it's right to get out of your comfort zone to cover a story and when it's better to walk away. In this case, we did go ahead, and we got a good story about the day-to-day dangers faced by under-equipped Afghan soldiers. But there were points of that day that were some of the most frightening experiences of my life, and I felt deep guilt about what my family would go through if everything went wrong. There are some things you can do to create muscle memory and mental resilience and learn basic safety protocols that can minimize dangers in the field. I can't speak for other countries, but in the UK, news organisations must send journalists to hostile environment training before going to conflict zones. This might be driven by insurance considerations, but it's highly beneficial to reporters, and I've learned a lot on these courses. The most important aspect, in my view, is emergency medical care, learning how to treat wounds, apply a tourniquet, give basic first aid. Every journalist should have basic medical training and keep renewing that knowledge. And overall, it would be great to have more courses available for freelancers who are often the least protected in the field. It's a moral obligation for media outlets to take responsibility for anyone reporting for them in a conflict zone in the same way that they would look after a staff reporter. And too often, to our shame, the needs of local colleagues without whom we could not operate effectively on the ground are overlooked. Our industry also lags behind in addressing the trauma that many journalists face after returning from a high-intensity war zone or from covering a tragic news event. Some outlets do it better than others, offering options to seek help and counselling in confidence. But in many newsrooms, stigmas over mental health remain. Counselling offers are inadequate or not even suggested. There's a gap in understanding between managers and editors in a newsroom and the trauma faced by those who have been in the field. The story moves on quickly to the next headline, but the memories and the emotions do not. This is where I believe more experienced journalists could play a bigger role as newsroom mentors for younger colleagues starting out, helping them to prepare better for what's to come. But the handling or the ignoring of trauma in newsrooms needs to change. We have to do better. Finally, as I mentioned, newsrooms move quickly onto the next headline, even as a crisis continues on the ground. A big part of our jobs is to stick with the story, to see it through, to keep it in the public eye. In my 15 years of conflict reporting, I've seen very little accountability so far for the atrocities I've witnessed or the victims I've interviewed. That doesn't mean it won't happen. We have to keep persevering. Myanmar is another case in point. The coup gripped the world for several months in 2021 before the humanitarian tragedy, the cruelty of the military regime and its deadly airstrikes slipped onto the back burner. There are so many conflicts that don't even make headlines. There's no easy solution in a world where the news industry is struggling to survive commercially. But we have to. It's our duty to keep the interest burning, to find new and creative ways to tell the story. And for those of us who have the option of flying in and out of these conflict zones, to keep supporting local colleagues who remain behind and face the hard daily slog. So I'll sign off here and thank you very much for listening and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Nicola Smith. Thank you for bringing us with you the actual thought process that you've experienced and you've experienced as a conflict journalist. And she has also talked about the reality of journalists often being on the periphery of events, but that it is the job of journalists to show the human face of any crisis. Thank you again for your presentation. We would now like to invite the audience for a more lively discussion. If you have any comments, questions, anything that you'd like to add to the presentations, excellent presentations, you can raise your hand. Our staff will bring you the microphone. And before you speak, please identify your nationality and your affiliation. Sir, glasses.
Thank you. Hi, I'm James Griffiths. I work for the Globe and Mail, a Canadian newspaper. This is primarily a question for Ms. Knoll, but other people may have comments. You talked about the kind of geopolitical reasons that South Korean media may not concentrate on other places in the world, and I think probably a lot of us are familiar with the kind of myopia that a lot of countries have to places beyond their borders. But I wondered how much you think kind of financial pressures also come into this, and was there ever a period when Korean media kind of, when there was perhaps more money in media, were they spending more money on foreign reporting, especially conflict journalism? And is this something that's gone away as companies have less money to spend to send people abroad?
Thank you for your question. So you asked me if there is the financial problems related to.
Do companies not send people abroad because it costs so much? It costs so much to have reporters in Ukraine day in, day out, and is that part of the pressure?
Yes, I think of course we have some financial issues. We cannot send correspondents to everywhere in the world. But I think if we can, it's a matter of investment. So, for example, in 2022, Hankyoreh actually created a position, Euro correspondent to Berlin. I was the first Euro correspondent there, and I think it was a good start for, even though we have a lot of financial issues, but I think it's just a matter of choice and matter of decision for what kind of news we want to deliver in terms of, it can be international news and it can be political news, but we just started to realize the importance of the international news. But I don't think it's enough, and even though we have a lot of financial issues, I think we should just put money into that. And I can say if you really want to be very competitive in world level, then we don't have any choice. I'm not sure if I just gave you the right answer.
Thank you. Please, lady in the...
First of all, I would like to congratulate all the great ladies in front there. You are taking the floor, and no man is representing the world media. So I'm Lorilla from Malaysia. I'm an old-timer in journalism. So I just wonder why, especially Miss Smith, why do you think your company choose you to be the conflict or war correspondent? Do you think the male and the female journalists would have difference in their approach or perspective in writing conflict zone? And another thing is that maybe this is quite a heavy question, but it's up to you whether to want to answer or not. How do you differentiate between the responsibility of the media, the human interest, objective of you covering the war, and also what kind of humanity values that you have in your coverage? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is this on? Can you hear me? Thank you very much for your question. I don't think my newspaper did choose me, actually. I think I just happened to be there. But I do think that there is a difference in the way that men and women report conflict sometimes. I don't want to generalize too much, but I certainly come from a newspaper background where there have been a lot of female reporters to look up to, as well as men. I think we just have a slightly different approach. Speaking from my own experience, in the places I've been, I think sometimes women can speak to other women more easily, and that the women who are affected by conflict have a different perspective to men. In Afghanistan, as a woman, you have the privilege to be able to speak more easily to other women. You can, go beyond the kind of you have that cultural acceptance as a woman to be able to speak to another woman. I think that definitely, you definitely hear a different perspective, that women have a lot of things to say about war, that they have a view on war that you wouldn't necessarily get from a man who's been impacted by the same conflict. I do think that both sexes bring unique insights, and that it's important to have both perspectives. But I do greatly admire a lot of women who've gone before me in the field. I think there's a lot of compassion in their reporting and a lot of empathy, which I'd have also seen with men in the field as well. It's not a uniquely female view of things. Your second question was about humanity.
How to differentiate human interest, humanity values when you have your coverage? Is that
the human dimension?
Human
Dimension in a story.
Oh, the human dimension in the story. I think it's just a question of trying to get beyond the official narrative, and as far as possible, all governments and militaries always have a view in a conflict that they want to put out. It can be your own government, it can be a foreign government. They all have their official narrative, and I think it's very important to speak to people who are not pushing that narrative, to speak to people who are actually experiencing the war, to get their views, to find out their stories, their emotions, what they're seeing and their realities. And I think that's one of the most important things about covering conflict, is just to speak to eyewitnesses, to try not to rely on what the army's telling you or the government. I mean, it's always important to hear their view as well, but to really get beyond that and try to speak to as big a selection of people as possible, because very often we're parachuting into these conflict zones. We don't necessarily have enough context of our own or enough experience of a particular country, and you really do rely, as has been said, on your local colleagues. And I think it's very important in that context then to speak to as many people as you can, to get as many different views as you can. And that's the most important story in any war, is how it's impacting the population.
Thank you. Maybe someone from the back. Sir, in the middle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ikapon from Vientiane newspaper of Laos, PDR. First of all, I would like to express thanks to the Korean Journalists Association for inviting me here. I have a question for the panelists. Maybe you can share your experience and idea. You know that media, we should be neutral when we report international events, but sometimes it's very difficult for us to use the language. For example, when we in the past, from my experience as a foreign news editor in my newspaper, we get complaint from both Ukraine and Russia embassy about the language we use. That from Russian perspective, they want us to use the Russia launch special military operation over Ukraine, but from UK embassy said Russia invades UK. So, do you have any suggestion or recommendation? The language we use in this context, how to become neutral to report about Russian-UK conflict? Thank you.
Who would like to be first to answer question? It's a difficult question.
Hello. Can you hear me? So, I'm not sure if it's specifically you're talking about the Ukraine-Russia war, or your question is about being neutral to the stories.
How to be
Neutral.
and how to use the appropriate language, because Russia is not. Russia did not invade Ukraine, but it's launched special military operations. But from Ukraine side, Russia invaded Ukraine. So, as a media, what kinds of language we should use to make sure that we are neutral?
I think I get your question, and this is one of the challenges I was mentioning, that journalists do have pressures, and sometimes these are the internal pressures, and organizations sometimes they do have their own kind of editorial line, and we as journalists are not only facing the internal pressures, there are external, the government lines, what government is, how government is taking stand on that particular issue. So it's really hard. The answer is really difficult to your question. But about being neutral, I think it's really difficult. I mean, especially when there is war. I don't know if journalists are supposed to be neutral, because we see whatever is happening. I think this is another topic, but we have to be truthful than neutral. And yeah, if there is any kind of dilemma, and if I have to choose between being neutral and being truthful, I will always choose being truthful. And I'm not sure if I still answered your question, but I'm not sure if my colleagues wanna contribute to it.
Sorry, the beige jacket.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am happy to be with you, and thank you for your invitation. My name is Hadi. I am originally from Tunisia, but I work in Qatar for Qatar News Agency. I am senior reporter in Arabic news department. I like what Miss NOH Ji Won, I hope I say your name correctly, a war is an event, and you asked if the war is an event, and my question: how can the international journalists cover the conflicts? He should be stand with the truth or the humanity. This is my question. Without any omission.
Sorry, could you
Yeah.
repeat your question, please?
In the conflicts, the journalist should stand with the truth or the humanity side.
Thank you for your question. So you are asking what I should choose between truth and humanity?
Yes.
I think the truth and humanity. I don't think I have to pick one, and I don't think they are different. It can be the same and it can be different sometimes, but so maybe you just asked this question with some thoughts of you. So I'm very curious about it. So can you share? You can just specifically mention something, because why did you raise up that question? Because it can, it depends on what you're actually thinking.
It's open question, not especially.
Okay.
For example.
Yeah. Like I just answered, like I don't think we journalists should pick one between truth and humanity. And if I pursue the truth while I was covering news on the field, I think ultimately we can achieve the humanity too.
Gentleman in the red tie.
Good morning to all. Thank you. I'm very happy to be participant of this prestigious conference, World Journalist Conference. I have a quick question. That is, a couple of years back, I underwent a workshop. The workshop was done by a journalist from UK. He was telling us that when you are a journalist, you are working in a conflict zone, always keep remember that Big Brother is watching you. That might be government and that might be any authority. So my question is that you are talking about that always we have to be truthful, we have to reveal what is truth, what is going on. So my question is, sometimes we have to face the national interest, which is from our government side. We have to listen to them, that you have to keep up, you have to uphold the national interest first. So my question is, what is very important? Telling the truth to the people or keeping up the national interest of the country? And I'm from Bangladesh. My name is Nicola. Thank you. Anyone can give the answer.
I think our speakers face the most difficult audience, full of journalists, credible journalists. So the question was, sometimes when you face the dilemma of the national interest and being truthful, what do you do? That's the gist of your question. Who would like to?
It's an interesting question. I don't think it's our job as journalists to keep up our national interest, though. I do think that it's our job to tell the truth no matter what, and that can involve asking some very difficult questions and writing some difficult stories that won't be welcomed by our governments. But I do think that's our job. It's our job to hold power to account, no matter who it is, whether it's our government, whether it's our military, whether it's another government. The truth always has to come first, and it's not our job to be propagandists for our government. The only time I think there's probably exceptions, definitely in the UK, is if there's a very serious security threat where lives are at risk, then sometimes they will put out a D notice to newsrooms asking for something not to be reported. But I think that would be a very, very rare exception, that it's really our job to challenge what our governments are doing abroad. And I think the British media has done that. I think other medias have done that, to challenge, especially during times of war, things that should have been done differently or should not have happened at all. So that's where I would stand on it, that the truth always has to come before national interest.
Does any of our panelists have different views or additional or different views to add?
I might want to add something. So I know this is a question like unaddressed till now, but I know what you're asking. There was an incident in Pakistan when there was a terrorist attack on Army Public School, and more than 200 children were killed by the terrorists. And when that was happening, there was an obligation on media not to tell each and every detail what was going on there, because those terrorists were utilizing some technology to communicate and to know through media what was happening there. So in these kind of situations, of course, this is a different situation, but I believe that in this kind of situation, we do have an obligation. Yes, this is happening. How many terrorists are there? Whatever is happening, we tell the story. We reported it. But again, we don't have to go into the detail, though we had it. In the real time, when the incident was happening, we had the details where those terrorists are right now, because the operation was being done and they were carrying out that operation. So we had to follow some responsibility on us so that the operation is not affected, because there were more than 200 lives inside the school, and we were hoping that those can be saved. So I think it depends on the situation you are in, what kind of situation we are. Is a real war situation? Is it an attack from the terrorists? What kind of story we are covering? So I think as experienced journalists, we assess the kind of situation we are experiencing, and we decide and make decisions according to that. But again, as my colleague said, we always have to be truthful, and we don't want to be part of any kind of agenda. And if we talk about other stories and other examples, but I just wanted to mention this particular incident because there are some incidents that we have to follow something that you were referring to. Thank you.
Ma'am, in the back of the left, to my left. Or you can start and then I'll give you the mic.
Thank you. My name is Zavonia. I'm from Timor-Leste. So I really appreciate it because you have 5 panelists, women. So it's really grateful because you have a lot of patriarchal system that dominated by men. Even that in chief of room is like from editors, newsroom. So you're starting with our perspective. So my question for the Chinas, from my colleagues from the China. So actually the difference, the policy, the political situation is quite different. About when we're talking about the freedom of the press in China, I think it's different with Southeast Asia, like more, I don't know, it's like more hard to say how the journalists more have freedom of the press to independently in newsroom to talking about the rights, the truth one. If I'm not correct, please correct me, if like how the government control the journalists to more independent to report about the war and conflict. So could you please tell me about the situation, especially for the women journalists that doing reporting on war, on the women issues, how is going on, how the women journalists struggling for more independently, more secure to report on the women issues in the war. And also for other panels like Korea, Pakistan, I know that Pakistan also a huge system, like when we talk about the patriarchal system, I think it's very stronger, like in Timor-Leste also, how the dominated by the men journalists decided on that. So can you tell me on gender perspective, when you talk about the reporting on and the war, is like how media plays the key role and shaping public attitude, including women and men. How the reporting give more space to the vulnerable people, like including women, people with disability, LGBTI in the war. So I think this is how we talk about the voice of voiceless. I'm not really agree with the neutrals, like independence, like oversight. We have a code of ethics to verify. So how it's work in your newsroom on your perspective about the gender and conflict sensitive reporting during your covering story?
Thank you very much for your question. May I repeat? You want me to talk about women journalists, their working situation in China, right? I work at China Daily. Actually, most of my colleagues are women. In my department, we have more than 20 journalists, and I think 80% are women. So in China, women journalists actually play a very important role, and I think they are very, very diligent, very works very hard, and I think they have done very great jobs. Actually, I don't feel that there is differences regarding the treatment that the women and male journalists receive at the workplace. I think we actually we don't feel much about the gender differences actually. Yeah, and we have been given good opportunities. We have been trusted and to work independently. Many of my colleagues, they have also went to do some on-site field reporting, even when a disaster happens, like the earthquake happens. So personally, I don't see much differences, and I feel actually I feel good working in the journalism industry. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Perhaps Ms. Ji Won can add the general situation in Korean media or your media group, specifics in terms of gender and whether there are guidelines as to when a crisis happens or when a disaster happens, which gender tend to cover the stories or whatnot.
I would like to share this, my situation in my company. And as you all see, I was also surprised because all the panels were all female, and we were talking about war, and we were all women. It was very interesting to see for me too. And in my newsroom, the newcomers, new journalists coming to my company, they're almost like 70% of them are women. Because I think they have been through the interviews and all the tests, the written tests and so on. I just heard that the women got better scores than men, unfortunately. It's not half and half. The majority of the newcomers are women. But still there is a wall between female and male, because in terms of the chief of editor and all the board members are pretty much male. The board members are dominantly males, and I don't think gender equality has been achieved in our newsroom still. But the situation is changing, but I think it will take some time. And when I was dispatched by my company to go to Ukraine, I don't know why they chose me, but I don't think the company, when they decide to send a journalist to the war zone, I don't think they consider like gender much in my company, at least. I'm not sure about other companies because, you know, of course they male members can have some advantages, or vice versa, I think. But from my experience, I think women have different ability in war zone. I think I cannot say like which one is better or worse, but I think we can just do the different role. For example, in my trip to Kyiv in Ukraine, I pretty much focused on listening to people's stories. And I think, the compassion that I can have with them as female, you know, like mother or just female person in very dangerous area, someone who don't know how to shoot a gun and so on. I think I can have much similarities and compassion towards them.
Any more?
It's going to be a less philosophical question than some of the ones we've had. But to draw on a comment that Nicola made about going to hostile environment training when it comes to reporting conflict zones, I know a lot of Western media, it's a requirement for us to be deployed to most places that we have to have had hostile environment training. It's an insurance issue. But, you know, I've been based in Asia for a decade and I've done hostile environment training multiple times, and I don't think I've ever done it with a representative of an Asian outlet. And I wondered for the Asian journalists on the panel, you know, is this something that is a requirement or a norm for Asian outlets? And is this improving? You know, do you see companies providing this training or wanting to ensure that their journalists have this training before they're sent to dangerous parts of the world?
So maybe which you want a viewpoint from the Asian media?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Do any of you feel the change in the way your company or organization prepares in advance for covering of conflicts? Ms. Ji Won has pretty much said not yet. Maybe.
Or for example, does Chinese state media provide hostile environment training?
I can just briefly answer and help your understanding, because personally I haven't been to conflict zone, but I know China Daily because we have some overseas bureaus, we have reporters there, and I think sometimes before they went overseas, I think our company will help them prepare about the situation of that country, especially like the geopolitical situation, and we will equip them with necessary equipment and everything necessary, because most of our correspondents, they work alone in that country. We only have in many places we only have one reporter, so they have to work all independently on their own. So I think the company will help them from all aspects to be better prepared before they actually went there. And the changing, I think, if there's any changes, I think now maybe the preparation formation will be more than before, and due to the technology development, maybe we will equip them with better technologies, and we will help them to access to networks that we could reach in the destination country. So when any emergency situation happens, they will get some support in the destination countries. I think that, yeah, that's mainly what we do, as far as I know. Thank you.
Maybe we'll take 3 more questions. Please, green shirt.
Thank you very much. I'm from Turkey. I'm diplomacy correspondent and political correspondent in Ankara, capital city of Turkey. My name is Yıldız Yazıcıoğlu. Thank you very much to inviting this conference to me. I would like to ask, first of all, my Korean colleague. She mentioned about South Korean government didn't allow some area like started Ukrainian war. Is there any rules about the North Cyprus issue? Because of Cyprus also one of the conflict area. However, now it's not like intense place. It's like cold conflict arena. But is there any rule about the Cyprus? I have same question to my Chinese colleague. Is there any rule about North Cyprus travel and cover that issue from the Turkish side in Cyprus? And when we are talking here, of course, some children die in the Gaza Strip, and there is look like there is no solution about the peaceful over there Palestine and Israel conflict. What do you think about Western countries and Western journalism look at to Middle East issues, Middle East problem? What is your opinion? And I would like to ask also my UK journalist colleague, Nicola SMITH. And also maybe she would like to give the answer about the Cyprus issue as well, because of UK also one of the guarantor country in the Cyprus issue. Thank you very much.
So the first question was about the restrictions posed by the South Korean government in traveling to areas designated as travel ban zones. And since the Korean Peninsula itself is a conflict zone, are there any rules about that? And second question was to Ms. CHEN Yingqun about the similar restrictions. What was that the question? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Cyprus. Yes.
Is there any similar
Are there
rules about the North Cyprus issue? Because we didn't see any coverage about the.
I didn't see a lot of coverage or any coverage about the North Cyprus side. As you know, 2004, there is a United Nations plan, we call it Kofi Annan plan. Unfortunately, the South side give the no vote that plan, but North side give the yes vote that plan. Look like North side, as a Turkish side, they would like to get into peace in the Cyprus. But after that, like award-winning issue, South Cyprus became European Union member, and now continue North side suffer by some of the, economical difficulties because of world not travel there, and many sections still ongoing on in the North Cyprus. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third question was about how the Asian media views the Western journalists' coverage of the Middle East. So maybe Ms. Joo can start.
Thank you for your question. Regardless of the situation in Korean Peninsula, yes, there is a travel ban in Korea, and I would like to introduce what I mentioned in my article. So this travel ban system was originally adopted after a Korean missionary was kidnapped by the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2007. So I think that the government is protecting their nation too much, even the journalists. I think they are very concerned about their responsibility when something happened in the area, in the conflict zone. when they allowed the journalists to go into there to cover the news. Currently, I'm not really sure about Cyprus, but Ukraine and the Palestinian Gaza Strip and Iraq, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, and Afghanistan are listed as no trouble region. I didn't see Cyprus as trouble area.
Thank you very much for your question. Sorry, due to my limited knowledge and understanding of this, the topic you just mentioned, so I think I'm unable to comment too much on this. If you're interested, well, maybe we could talk more afterwards and then learn more about the situation. Thank you.
I think you asked us about the British position on Northern Cyprus as well, but I'm afraid it's an issue I don't know so much about, having not spent very much of my professional life in Europe. But I don't, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there are no reporting restrictions from the British side on, if that was your question, on Northern Cyprus. I think, unfortunately, it's like many important issues that newsrooms and newsroom budgets are so stretched that we're just not able to cover everything, which is an unfortunate side of our industry, that there's so many different issues to cover and so few, in fact fewer and fewer correspondents who've just seen how our foreign budgets, our foreign desk budgets have just been slashed in recent years, and we've lost a lot of colleagues just through shrinking newsrooms. So there's nothing that I'm aware of that would stop us from reporting on that issue. I think you also asked about Western media, how Western media is covering Gaza. I mean, again, I'm based in Asia, so that's kind of my major focus. I don't think there is one Western media approach to Gaza. I do think that when it comes to the horrific realities on the ground there, that the Western media has the same issues as everyone else. That is that we have no access. That's been hindering everyone's reporting. But yet what's been happening, the suffering that's been happening there has still been coming out, is still being reported, and that is definitely. There has been a lot of coverage of what's been happening to children in Gaza in the Western media. I mean, I don't know if you have your own view on that, or if there's anything you would like to add, but I've certainly seen from my colleagues, we have one person on the ground in Israel, we've been flying people in and out. There have been attempts to get into Gaza, and there have been, I know from my editor's point of view that they've been trying to cover what's been happening there as much as possible, as accurately as possible. But I can't really speak to the whole of the Western media on that.
Maybe we'll finish up with one more question.
Hello, good morning. My name is Filipa Mendes. I'm a journalist at Portuguese newspaper Público. I have a question maybe for Ms. Nicola Smith. So our guidelines and our code of ethics say that journalists cannot or should not interfere directly in the course of events. So where do we draw the line between this and our role in world peace and exposing human rights violations? And also our role as humans and journalists in a conflict zone?
Another really difficult question to finish on. I think generally, yes, that is absolutely right, that we shouldn't be intervening in events, that we should be reporting on them, and with the hope that our reports on human rights abuses will make a difference somehow, that it will catch people's attention, it will draw a spotlight onto things that should be exposed, and I think generally that's the rule by which we should live by. But yeah, when you're on the ground, sometimes there are, you know, times where you have to make some judgment calls and things. Like, I don't know, if you're visiting a family and they're desperately in need of food, like, you know, you take them food, you know, is that intervening? Is that in any way, you know, kind of producing a skewed report? And, you know, I don't think so. I think there's just those small, I think there are issues on the grounds where it's a bit of a grey area, but generally that, yes, it's not our job to intervene in a situation. It's our job to report on it and try and, again, you know, just get the truth out there.
Okay, well then I think that should wrap up conference 1 of our session, World Journalist Conference 2024. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your participation, and your thought-provoking questions. I think all of us, including the speakers, have learned more and will ponder more when it comes to war and peace journalism. We are going to have about 20 minutes of a break, and after that we will resume with an opening ceremony. Before that, there will be a special session about changing geopolitical dynamics and Korea's foreign policy, delivered by Deputy Minister Chung Byung-won of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of South Korea. Please enjoy your break, and we'll see you back at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you again for please give a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you.